Support for the series on women in science and tech comes from Genentech, dedicated to breakthrough science and social good that supports local communities. Because making medicine is just one way to make a difference. Genentech, the future of science is here. Online at gene.com/future.
Hello, I'm Kamla. My guest today is Julie Yu. She's a senior scientist at the Exploratorium, and we join her in part 2 of our conversation. In part 1, she had me flummoxed with this genie in the bottle puzzle.
Yeah, and so I introduced them to my genie. So there's a genie in here, and I asked, do you believe me that there's a genie in here?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, if they're yes, then we're done.
Okay, there's no genie.
So one question is, what do you believe? How do you know what you know, right? You can
because I read all the story, those fairy tales about genies.
So there's stories about them. Maybe you decide I'm trustworthy, and I just told you that there's a genie, and you can believe me. Or maybe you say, you know what? Those are just stories, and I just met you, so maybe there's not a genie. And so then maybe I'll provide you some evidence that there's a genie. And to show you that there's a genie, I will show you that he holds on to things.
Oh, wow. Is that a magnet?
And so it's a genie. It's not. Why would you say there's a magnet?
Because that looks like some sort of a wire.
Okay, so there's some sort of wire on here, and you say, oh.
So the wire will stick to a magnet. So there must be a magnet inside.
That's right. And so how would we test whether there's a magnet? I'm going to say actually it's not a magnet. It's a genie.
So now, during the break, we found out that our producer she has a magnet. So let's see. This is my last try. If you can put that magnet near the bottle and see if genie comes or whatever.
So there's a magnet here.
Yeah.
And why are we putting it near the bottle? Like, what is it going to tell
I don't know. I don't know. Do magnets attract? I've forgotten. So let's just put it there and see.
Okay, so if there was a magnet in here, we hypothesized that it would be attracted to this and that maybe it could hold it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're testing, is whether or not there's a magnet. I mean, do you want to hold that to that and tell me if you feel any attraction?
No, nothing at all. It's dead as a dodo.
Well, it's not dead. It's a genie.
That genie has got me flummoxed. Okay,
non-magnetic genie.
Okay, so we'll think about it. So this magnet didn't work. So, okay, so I tried.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully you're still thinking. And we can keep trying and keep thinking the rest of our time.
Let's move on to the second experiment.
Sure, we have a different kind of demo here. This one is a little more equipment intensive, but it's a demonstration of how you can transmit information through light. And we're going to transmit sound information. And really, this is important now because many of us have one of these things in our pocket, and we depend on cell phones. And a question like, how the heck does this thing work? Right? You can just press some buttons and all of a sudden you're talking to your friend across the world. And the way we're going to...
That's the question my mom would ask. Yeah, how does this phone work?
Right? Yeah. So we're all using...
How come there's no wire to the phone?
This device that it is not obvious how it's working. There's no wire. We can't really see what's going on. And a lot of science and really science communication is helping people see what you can't see. And so we're going to do that today. Instead of calling someone, I'm just going to play a song here. But I'm going to plug in where the headphones normally go. And I have this it's a circuit here. It's pretty simple. If you really care about learning it, you can go on the website and for free. Exploratorium website. And you can check out exactly how to build this yourself. But you can see it's pretty simple. There's some electronics equipment here, but this circuit is just powering this LED light. And since I plugged in the headphones, the output from the headphones into the circuit, this light is actually singing. This light is singing the song that's coming out of my phone.
But we don't hear the sound.
That's right, because we see light and hear sound. We don't hear light. However, I have this other setup here. This is a solar panel, which is also very much more and more a part of our lives. And what solar panels do is they take light energy and they change it to electrical energy. So there are these two probes on the back, and maybe you have solar panels on your house and it's powering the electricity in your home. Here, it's taking that electrical signal and it's feeding it into a speaker. So when I turn this on...
Is that a Radio Shack speaker?
It is a speaker. It's taking the electrical input, and right now, there's a slight buzzing. And that's the buzzing of the lights in this room. This kind of, it's the flickering of the lights in the room. So that's kind of how lights sound, it turns out. But I just told you that this was singing the song that's playing from my phone. So if we capture...
Oh, how did that happen?
How did that happen? So what's happening? This is spitting out an electrical signal. And remember, this light, it's hard to see it flickering. It's flickering too fast for our eyes to see, but it's flickering.
So that's why it's steady.
Yeah, but it's actually flickering at the rate of the song. And so you can block it. You can show that this light is transmitting the information.
And how is that happening? Because of the light?
The light is flickering at a rate that corresponds to the audio information that's coming out of here. And this device captures that light information, and it's flickering it out into the speaker.
So what are the implications of something like this?
When you get on the phone with your friend, some signal is coming from a cell tower to a transmitter in your phone, and all of a sudden you're hearing their voice, and then you're speaking into your phone, and some signal is going out of your phone back to a cell tower and back to their network.
This is that signal.
Well, this is a light we can see. This is a different type of signal that we can't see, but they're both part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So one part is visible, and that's the visible rainbow that we see. And there's another part that is, that has a longer wavelength. It's microwaves. They're in the same family of electromagnetic energy. And the cell phone signals are also in that family. And so this is a model, like there's a red light so we can see because we're trying to make this phenomenon visible. But this works the same way, where it's taking information, it's changing it to a signal, an electromagnetic signal. So this is light that we cannot see. Something is receiving it, converting it to another electrical signal, beaming it back to your buddy's phone, and all of a sudden you're talking to each other.
Do you sit in kind of unbox technology all day long when you look at something? Do you kind of think about it? How does that light work? I'm just wondering how what kind of lens do you have when you're walking around, outside the Exploratorium and in downtown San Francisco?
I think I have, been trained to notice. The Exploratorium's founder, Frank Oppenheimer, described scientists and artists as the official or the professional noticers of the world, and artists and scientists notice phenomena and then they communicate it in very different ways, and they kind of have different rules about how their craft works. Science is about noticing, making some predictions or developing some ideas.
Don't show the genie in the bottle.
Developing some idea about how it works and using evidence and repeatable experiments to verify those ideas or refine them until you feel like that's the right explanation.
When did you become a noticer? You said that flour and water.
Yeah, we are all noticers. Maybe the leap into being scientific about it is taking that noticing and acting on it and doing some experimentation and actually trying to figure out something that follows from your noticing. So you notice something, you have some question about it, and maybe there are things in the world, there are a lot of them where you just have a question and it stops there. And I think inquiry and science comes at the next step where you say, oh, you know what? I think there might be a magnet in there, so I'm gonna find a magnet. My buddy has a magnet, and then I'm gonna attach the magnet to the thing and I'm gonna test it. I think people from child to adult run into those scenarios all the time, every day. There's something you're trying to figure out. There's something that's not quite working. There's some question you have. And what we're encouraging people to do is to explore that, to try to figure that out, because we can figure this world out, right? We can go to first principles and build our knowledge from it, some kind of basic understanding of how the physics and chemistry and biology of this world work. And from there, we can build a fleshed out understanding to help us then design things and create things and engineer things to help humanity.
Did it help you that your mom was a librarian? Because she, all day long she answered questions, right? One of the things that a librarian does is help people navigate information and find the right information.
Yeah, that's true. I think maybe what might have helped, despite being a professional librarian, I don't remember a ton of questions being answered at home. So you can see I have full comfort not answering your questions when they're so directed. I think what I developed through childhood is a healthy skepticism and healthy curiosity, right? And in that way, what I came out of my childhood knowing is that I didn't have to take someone's word for it or believe a certain thing in a book, that I could actually figure that out for myself. And really, until I verified, there are many things, like until I verified it for myself, it was just like, oh, maybe that's the case. But once you get evidence of something for yourself, you have this visceral connection to it. Like, I saw that happen, or I tasted that, or smelled it, or whatever. And then you have a reason to believe it. And then, you can't, as one person, test everything in the world, but you can maybe look, you can read another scientist's paper, or you can say, well, how did you know that? And maybe you can tell me how you came to understand that, and then I feel like, okay, I believe those methods, and I'm going to believe you when you say this happened, or this is why this happens.
Did you have a hard time with history class? Because the evidence there is very different, right?
Yeah, I have a hard time with the way history is taught now that I'm an adult and I know who's writing the history and who's teaching it. I think, my schooling, when I think about my grade schooling, it was, I guess we would call it traditional, pretty transmission-based and didactic, and, you learn this thing and you do the worksheet. So I don't feel like that really is where the depth of my understanding of things like history or even science came from.
Where did it come from?
It's really through later life. Learning on my own and researching and just being a human out in the world and
being a skeptic.
Yeah, the skeptic maybe sometimes has a negative connotation. I don't personally think so.
I don't think it's negative. Skeptic means you don't take that as given word. You want more evidence.
I think skepticism and curiosity, like general curiosity about how things work or why things are or how they came to be this way.
So did you know that you were going to be majoring in math and science when you were out of school and going into college?
I didn't know that for sure. I did well enough in school in all this.
And you said that it was not the best school.
It was not, I have to admit. So I was interested in a lot of things, and I think I could have.
Do you play any instruments?
I played the drums in high school, and that's actually how I think I got to college, is that I was a pretty good drummer in high school, and so doing well in an unremarkable
So you watched
school.
Whiplash?
I actually have not watched Whiplash. I think that was probably a different experience than my high school marching band and jazz band, but maybe not. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I think I had a number of interests. I went to a school that really invites you to devise your own course of learning.
Which is Brown.
Yeah, I went to Brown University.
But then you had a hard time going to Brown because the lady who was supposed to mail your transcripts.
I think in my school, there were not a lot of students who went out of state for college. I grew up in Texas, and most students, if they went to college, they went to schools in Texas. There are many good schools.
Why did you want to go out of state?
I think that my parents immigrated from the opposite side of the world, so the state boundary wasn't really limiting for me, and I think we were always encouraged to do whatever we wanted to do and go to whatever school we wanted to.
But going to an Ivy League school is a whole different ball game, because you said most of your classmates prefer to stay within the state. And here you are saying, I want to go to an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
How did that, should I use the word courage or?
Maybe it's ignorance. I don't know. I think that I have older siblings, and they both went out of state for school. So for me, as the third child, it wasn't so unusual. It didn't feel so dangerous or scary to do that because I had two models in my siblings.
Did they go to Brown?
Nope, they went to other schools, but also in New England, also out of state. And I think that, in my school, it wasn't that it was discouraged, it was unfamiliar, it wasn't very common. And so the story that I have is when I was you have to get your transcript sent to your school so that they can evaluate your application. And I think it's different now, but back then the school had to send it in a signed envelope. And so I provided them the stamped envelope, and Brown is in Providence, Rhode Island. And the woman there looked at my envelope and she was like, "RI, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's Rhode Island. It's where this university is." And she was really trying to be helpful. She was like, "Oh, I think that's in New York. I think it's in New York." And I said, "Oh, I think you might be thinking of Long Island, not Rhode Island." And just trying to be helpful, and I just remember thinking, like, oh goodness, I hope that this transcript gets sent off. And fortunately it did, and I got accepted, and it was one of the best decisions of my life.
And you wanted to major in two things, chemical engineering and English.
Engineering and English, yeah. I mean, I had a broad interest, and at Brown, again, at that time, you were only required to do whatever your major had as their requirements. And engineering, to get accreditation, had actually the largest number. And the engineering department awards Bachelors of Science degrees, and the English department awards Bachelors of Arts degrees. And actually, as I was getting through school, they told me that I would have to stay a fifth year if I wanted both a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, and that seemed too expensive to me, so I stuck with the Bachelor of Science in Engineering.
So you have no regrets about not majoring in English?
No, I was still able to take the classes. I mean, it's all about the learning, not about the degree.
Then after you graduate from Brown, you head to the Bay Area.
Yes.
To become a teacher.
Yes.
Did you want to be a teacher?
I did.
Because with a degree in chemical engineering, you could have gotten a job in an oil industry back in Texas and made more money.
Yes, probably. I contemplated going into industry or consulting, but teaching was an option for me, and I ended up getting a job at a school in East Palo Alto. Here.
Not too far from here.
Not too far from where we are right now. The idea that I could come in and teach without a formal training in teaching and be equipped to help the students there turned out to be wrong. Like I was not fully prepared to teach there. And actually that was my first experience with the Exploratorium, is I went to the museum for my own professional development, and they were a godsend, right? They had, I was in their teacher induction program, I had a coach who came to visit my class, I had a mentor support group, and so I, through them, got the tools that helped me get through that first year and hopefully do some productive teaching that first year. But it was a crash course in learning how difficult, challenging, and really important the job of a teacher is. And so I have the most profound respect for teachers, and I'm very glad that I can spend my career supporting them.
So you came unprepared. You had some sort of an idealistic idea that because you have this degree from an Ivy League school, chemical engineering, that it would be a breeze to teach high schoolers.
I didn't think it would be a breeze, and I thought that I could do it. That
When I say breeze, I meant that because going through the textbook would not have been that difficult for you. Knowing the content of the subject.
I mean, I knew that content wasn't going to be an issue for me, and that my the hope was that my enthusiasm for learning and for the content could help students get excited about learning.
So how did that 1 year change you, because you got exposed to the Exploratorium, the teacher induction program there, you had a coach coming from the Exploratorium. Mm-hmm. Did you see any noticeable change in the way you were teaching at the end of the year?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's night and day from day 1 to day 180.
And were the kids more open to receiving? I mean, if you did this genie in the bottle thing, do you think they would have liked it?
Well, I did. They did like it.
So this is an old trick.
This is an old trick from there. I mean, I definitely still believed then in.
So you did this in East Palo Alto?
Yes. So this was the first week of school for sure. Genie came out, and throughout the year, there was an open invitation where kids could continue to test whatever they wanted to test, and so. And
were they allowed to peek?
No, Genie's so shy. You can't just peek into somebody else's space. That's really not respectful.
Did anybody crack it?
No one cracked it, and throughout the year, kids would say like, Monsieur, like let's try this, let's try these scissors or something. And to me, that's the goal, right? Is that there's something that they can constantly think about, and also that they develop a mindset of, we're going to try to figure this out. So that was definitely part of the culture of my classroom.
So you taught for a year or two, and then you decide to go and do a PhD in chemical engineering and biology.
Yes.
And that's a very interesting combo. How did that come about?
It came about because in between, I guess, when I took biology in high school and that point, I mean, it was happening long before, but biotechnology like really took off and happened, right? And so our ability,
And this was the hub.
This was the hub. I mean, our like scientists' ability to manipulate DNA and how quantitative molecular biology had become got me really interested. And so I just wanted to learn more, because biology, when I had taken it in high school, was very qualitative and, you know, just purely observation-based and interesting, but not really a passion of mine. However, the idea of really being able to describe things analytically and quantitatively was way more interesting to me, and also just the amazing, basically, power that we scientists had generated through being able to manipulate DNA and proteins and other biomolecules was pretty fascinating. And so I went back to school, and at that time and still now, even though, you know, you have these departments that are chemical engineering or even physics or math, some portion of those departments, like someone or many people there, are applying what they know to the field of medicine and health and biology. And so in the chemical engineering department at Berkeley, where I went, there were a handful of professors who were more focused on kind of biochemical engineering or biomolecular engineering, and I joined.
What does that mean, biomolecular engineering? What does that mean?
So it's really taking kind of the first principles of chemical engineering as we would think about them and applying it to the field of biology and medicine. And in our lab, for example, we worked with viruses for gene therapy and the therapy.
Really? How? I mean, virus has such a bad connotation.
That's right. However, we're engineers, and so what our strategy was to take the basic shell of a virus, which is something that has evolved over millions of years to be very good at infecting a cell and delivering its genetic information. And what the field of gene therapy is using genes as therapy. And so in order to get a gene into a therapeutic target, you need some vehicle that's very good at entering a cell and delivering genetic information. And it turns out viruses are great. And what is negative about them is that normally their genetic instructions are to make more viruses. But the field of genetic engineering allows us to swap out making more viruses.
How do you do that? How do you clean out the inside of the virus so that only the shell, and then you inject your payload, your gene therapy payload?
Right.
How do you do that?
So you do it by manipulating the genome of the virus. And so the genome could be DNA or RNA.
You're getting so excited now.
That's where we are. I mean, it's 20 years
So
old now.
you manipulate, you engineer, you do engineering on that virus.
Right, so you take out the DNA or RNA that says make a virus, and you put in the genetic information, the DNA usually, that says make factor IX for hemophilia, or make this protein that this
And it
patient
works?
needs. And it works. There are gene therapy clinical trials in progress now, and it's one small piece of a huge field. The whole practice of using viruses to deliver or transfer genetic information is used in almost every molecular biology lab. So not even necessarily for therapeutic uses, but just as a tool for manipulating DNA. It's a very common practice to package something in a virus and use that virus to permanently integrate genes into a host cell.
That is so fascinating, you know, all the stuff that happens in labs that we have no idea about. But because you work at the Exploratorium, you're able to bring the lab findings and share it with the students and teachers.
Yeah, that's definitely part of our mission at the Exploratorium. I mean, there really shouldn't be anything mysterious or hidden about it. And
Oh, that blue bottle is a mystery?
well, I mean, not everyone is gonna understand things to the level of sophistication as a person in the lab, but we should all understand enough to know that When the news story comes out about this genetic modification or, what CRISPR gene editing is, right? We need to build in at least enough understanding so that we can make wise civic decisions, because you and I will be voting on these things, and we will have health options that include these things. And now there's DNA testing that you can go online and understand a little bit more about your genetic makeup, and does it tie to your ancestry. So these things are in our everyday decisions, and it's important to us at the Exploratorium and me as a person that people feel like they can understand that they're not just consuming and kind of at the mercy of people who are telling them this is how things are, that they can validate that and have some skepticism about that themselves.
Julie, I'm going to switch gears. You've got me thinking about the genie, and I'm going to go and listen to some song on genie, and hopefully I'll see light.
That's great.
I'm going to ask you 3 different questions from the Proust questionnaire. What is your favorite occupation?
My favorite occupation? Can I say scientist? I mean, that's the occupation I've chosen. So
that's your favorite occupation.
I guess so. That's what I'm occupied with.
Okay, you're literal. What is your motto?
My motto. Be curious. I think.
Where would you most like to live?
I would most like to live where I'm living right now.
The Bay Area?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the right place for me. I don't think that that's necessarily like the best place to live. It is the right place for me right now, and so I think in general, people should ask themselves that question. It's probably going to be different for everyone.
Julie, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for unboxing science and letting that genie out of the bottle. And that genie is going to plague me for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll ever find the
tests, just call me up.
I will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching. Join us for another new conversation next week. If you missed any of our shows, you can watch them on our YouTube channel. And as always, thank you.
Support for the series on women in science and tech comes from Genentech, dedicated to breakthrough science and social good that supports local communities. Because making medicine is just one way to make a difference. Genentech, the future of science is here. Online at gene.com/future.